Hello everyone. How's your day? I hope you all are doing absolutely fine. Welcome to our slash entitled parents, where as always guys we have 4 stories from that sub. We somehow got the same guy from 2 weeks ago. I guess his entitled tales are still going. Let's hear his story this time. Please enjoy.
No, Dad. I will not let you take my house camping. I mentioned in a prior post that my narcissist father in the 90s was angry that I was living out of a camper trailer. But not because I was using it for a home, but because I had a camper trailer. He'd wanted one for years, and just never got around to it. On top of his other faults, you can add extreme procrastinator to the list. The same guy with the N64 dad. After I moved into my uncle's backyard with the trailer, my parents eventually found me. They forced their way in and stole my car keys and then my car. That situation had to be resolved with police. They eventually started demanding I be their free driver again for when they went out drinking. And that didn't go over well either. Eventually my mother showed up to gripe at me about something else. By then she was pretending to be over wanting my car. But it was pretty obvious she was not over it. On this particular day, she was mad at me because my father was ranting about my trailer. Apparently he was pissed that I could just take it anywhere I wanted. And my mother told me she wanted me to get an apartment or something so my father would shut up about it. I told her no, I was getting way too good of a deal living out of the trailer. My uncle was hardly charging me anything, and I just had to do his yard work on top of the low amount of rent utilities I was paying. There's no way I'd give that up for an apartment. When my parents got their hands on another Vista Cruiser, it could tow things like my Caprice could. The Cavalier my father stole from me couldn't tow anything. And the small orange 70s car my mother had used for a while wasn't made for towing either. So when they got another wagon, they got one with a tow hitch. And as soon as they had it, my father wanted to start towing things. And then he decided all of a sudden he wanted to take my trailer camping. And he treated it like an FYI at first. My father, in his usual attitude, just showed up and bluntly told me he was going to use my trailer to go camping. I refused, and then he tried to order me as his son to let him take my trailer camping during the summer. I told him no again. It was literally my home. And I know him, he'd try to park my trailer at his house and then never give it back. My father tried to give me his Gorilla Man act, and I met it head on. Basically 2 rednecks chest bumping. But I told him to his face that he was not getting my trailer. Ever. And to go out and buy his own. The trailer also had a title in my name, and I wouldn't hesitate to call police if he took it. My old man, as usual, called me ungrateful, tried gaslighting, and finally left. My uncle watched practically the whole thing from a window with popcorn. He loved any time he saw my father miserable because my father was the golden child between them, and my uncle was treated horribly when he was growing up. So he was more entertained than anything else when he saw my old man having a tantrum over not getting his way. My father went out and rented a camper trailer for a few days. And then suddenly he didn't like camping anymore. He only wanted to do it because I had a trailer. And it was pretty obvious he wanted to claim it for himself. He honestly believed that anything that was mine was also his. And it took him several years to get it through his thick head that that wasn't how things worked. And just about anything he ever borrowed from me after I moved out, I never got those things back. So I didn't trust him with anything. I personally didn't feel the need to do any camping because I was already living out of a trailer. But I gave it a try when I became a parent myself. And it honestly wasn't that fun for us. My ex-wife especially hated it. But I wouldn't say she was what ruined the experience. I did take that trailer to a couple of family reunions though. That saved on motels. I was far from the only one in the family to do that though. And my parents demanded I let them sleep in my spare bunk for free during our mid-90s family reunion. I said hell no. And my parents were humiliated right out of that reunion anyway, because they doubled down over how I didn't hand over my second car to them, and my mother got slapped by a cousin for being a horrible parent.
It's impressive that you stood your ground, especially in situations where it could have been easier to just give in to avoid conflict. Your uncle's popcorn-watching reaction speaks volumes about the family dynamics and the contrast between his treatment growing up versus your father's. That must have been validating, at least a little.
That one time I realized my mother was an entitled mother. I went to a school where students had to wear a uniform and sometimes take part in ceremonies. They could take place whenever, but always outside. At the beginning of my second year there, we had a ceremony in November. Our chief, the woman responsible for my section, I don't know how to qualify her in English, told us our parents were invited to come and see us, even eat with us at lunch after, but we couldn't go out with them after the ceremony. I called my parents to inform them of this, and my mother told me that if we couldn't go out afterwards, then there was no point for her and my father to come to the ceremony. I tried to argue that it was the same for everyone, but she kept pushing, telling me that they could make an exception for us. I was 18 and really willing to not displease her, so I went and asked my chief. She was new at her job, so I guess she wanted to please student herself, so she agreed to let me go out with my parents after the ceremony, but I should not advertise it toward my fellow comrades. The day if the ceremony came. It was cold and rainy. I was super tired already. The ceremony consisted in us remaining on our feet, not moving except when we received the order to, for what felt like hours. Some students fell off, and replacements took their place. The replacements were the students whose parents couldn't come. I ended up fainting in the mud myself, and so another student took my place. My uniform was too stained for me to go back anyway, so I watched the rest with the crowd, but I couldn't find my parents until the very end, after my classmates sung our section's hymn. When I found my parents, I was all smiley because I found the situation funny. I was already feeling better, but my mother blew up, telling me I made them come to the ceremony for nothing, that I purposefully failed to receive attention or to get out of the ceremony because I didn't want to do it, that I was an embarrassment. My father was silent. I was ashamed. I changed, suggested a way for us to get out without being spotted by my classmates, and my mother told me I was an idiot and that everyone would see us. We took another road out. We went for a silent lunch in town, and my parents drove me back to school. In the car, my mom threw me a package on the face, telling Liz she didn't know if I deserved it. It was a soap of a great brand that she bought me for a celebration we could not have together a few days prior, due to me being at school. I got back at my dorm, feeling numb. I realized I wasn't surprised at my mom's outburst. I've often felt ashamed by her for not being well, either physically or emotionally, because she always believed I complain for attention. I am not in C with my mom, but I never complain to her ever. She often complains she wishes we would be closer, but I don't want to try. That day flipped a switch to me. I can only share the good times with her. Whenever we disagree, or I'm not feeling well in every ways possible, it will just upset her. So, I will just face whatever difficulties that comes without her, like I did for the past years.
Your experience reflects a deep and painful dynamic with your mother, where your needs and feelings seem to be consistently invalidated or dismissed. It's heartbreaking that such a pivotal moment, one that could have been an opportunity for bonding or mutual understanding, turned into another instance of blame, shame, and emotional detachment.
My mom won't knock. My mom won't knock. I 13F. Always told my mom to knock before she comes in, and she won't listen to me. I get uncomfortable when I'm changing in front of others, that I won't even use the changing rooms in school. I tell her, please knock before you enter. She always says she forgot, and gets annoyed when I mentioned it. I can't stand it anymore. When I'm changing, I always have to alert and grab the nearest piece of clothing to cover myself up. It's getting on my nerves. I'm a teenager, not a little kid anymore. I need privacy. My mom and dad won't even let me lock my door. What's the point of the key then? I just want some privacy.
Your feelings are completely valid. Privacy is important, especially as you're growing and becoming more independent. It's frustrating when your boundaries aren't being respected, especially when you've communicated them clearly. But if we see it from the parent's perspective, most of the time, it's due to their association with ensuring their child's safety.
Parents think that wearing anything dark, patches, studded leather is still considered taboo. I adore dressing myself scenes like metal, goth, and punk because I genuinely love being apart from the scenes and the music perspectively, but my parents still ever thought of that they might have think of me as some kind of a wicked person and bad influence. But why has nothing ever changed on why parents all the time ever come across when something looks so intimidating, they immediately assume that it's bad. I'm so done at this on why is anything out there have to be considered like this just from how you express yourself, when for some reason, I however cannot try and express myself when I get bothered by this huge mess. Ugh. Why can't people don't ever try not to judge a book, especially on its cover? People really need to understand each other a lot more in person than to put shame on them. It seems that people are way too dumb to realize this. I'm already fed up by this. Honestly, I'm convinced.
It's incredibly frustrating when your self-expression is met with judgment or assumptions, especially from those closest to you. Styles like metal, goth, and punk have deep cultural and musical significance, but people who don't understand them often jump to conclusions based on stereotypes. This isn't fair, and it's exhausting to feel like you constantly have to explain or defend yourself. Hey there! If you've made it to the end of this video, thank you so much for sticking around. Your support means the world to me. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe if you enjoyed it. It really helps out the channel. And if you want more content like this, make sure to hit that notification bell so you'll never miss an update. Thanks again, and I'll see you in the next one. Stay fine.